3, 2, 1.
Let's go!
Hey everybody. Hello. Happy Wednesday. We are live. It is Wednesday and it's us. It's Devanya and Diane, the ladies of Ladies and Lyrics. And if you can see, if you're on here live, you know that we have a guest here with us again this week. We have had some amazing guests who have just taken us to another level with our conversations. So today we want to welcome Anisha Dunmore, who is our guest this week, and she has some good stuff to share with us. But I want to first start off, first things first. I first have to say hello, what's up? How y'all doing out there? And y'all make sure you say hello and welcome Anisha. And then the other thing I have to do is say what's up to my co-host Diane. What's going on, Diane?
Everything's good. Yeah, I'm still not home yet. But
Diane, inquiry minds want to know. Do you plan on going home? They just want to know.
I'm going home. The next show I will be home. For how long, I don't know, but I will be back in the Carolinas. I've been on tour, they said. It's fun.
Yeah, you have. You have. Let's say hi to a couple of people before we introduce our guest. Hey there. Hey, Mom. She said, welcome to Anisha. Hey, lovely ladies. Hey, how you doing? And then Helen. Hey, Helen. Welcome and thank you all who are on time. If you jumped on, if you just popped on in here, you are just in time because we're just getting started. So go ahead and say hi. What's up? How you doing? If you're on YouTube or Facebook, let us know that you're watching us. Because some of y'all be back in the cut, just watching and not saying anything. Won't even say, hey, how y'all doing? But we want to know that you are out there. We want to acknowledge that you are here with us live tonight. So, with that being said, I want to introduce our guest. I want to give her the opportunity to introduce herself and tell us all a little bit about herself. So, Anisha Dunmore. Anisha, can you share some things about yourself with our audience?
Yes. Hi, you all. My name is Anisha Dunmore. I am a licensed clinical social worker in the state of Illinois. I'm currently servicing the Chicagoland area. I have been in social work for the last 7 years. Yes, 7 years. Fully licensed for the last, 5 years, I believe. Yeah, it's been 5 years, which sounds crazy. But yeah, so licensed for the last 5 years. And right now I am currently a senior director at a private practice called Ashe Counseling and Coaching.
What's the name of it, Anisha? Go ahead.
Ashe. Yes, Ashe Counseling.
Ashe. Okay. So Anisha's on the fast track, and I'm sure I'll let y'all know that this young lady is on her stuff, and I'm just so honored to know her. So, Anisha, on this show, I always get us prepared for our chit chat and ask my co-host, "Look, are you ready, Diane? Are you ready for some good music, some real talk with us dope women?"
Absolutely, I love that.
Let's get it going. So I wanted to, I talked to Diane and Anisha a little bit about this, but you all know that we have been talking about relationships, right? And I thought we have somebody in the field who can kind of give us some more insight into how people relate to each other and kind of relationships and trauma and toxic relationships. So maybe we'll get there because we only have a certain amount of time for chit chat. But we have a couple of questions for Anisha that we thought might be fun to talk about. Anisha, Diane, I'll let you go ahead and jump in, and then I will jump in.
Well, the question that I truly believe in counseling. I believe in couple counseling, and I also believe in individual counseling. what I would like to know, what is like the successful rate when it comes to counseling? And you could, go deep. When I say deep, like maybe break it down a little bit, because some people feel that it's about the successful rate of being in going in and coming out, and you still together. So maybe it might be it's counseling to break. Yeah. So that's my.
Okay. So you want me to go ahead and answer that question? We'll talk about it. Okay. So I think success is very subjective in regards to why clients are coming into that space for couples counseling. So I have worked with clients who started off potentially as just dating and it successfully worked into marriage. I've also seen couples through breaking up because they have noticed that they are not aligned. And so I think that in that conversation, a lot of times people are coming because there has been breakdown in miscommunication. They can't seem to get on the same page without it being a high level of conflict. So they essentially are coming in to have a middle person, kind of non-judgmental, safe space to work through some of the experiences that they have had. That is including trust issues, infidelity, family family drama, and the concept of, how that is affecting the relationship. Sometimes it's in regards to parenting, so then that becomes a thing, and just kind of working through that. So success is very subjective depending on why it is that couples are coming into that space and what is their end goal. So from a clinical standpoint, we always do treatment. Like, okay, what is the treatment plan? What is the plan of care? So identifying goals that they would like to accomplish, and along that journey there are check-ins of like, okay, this is the goal that you all set out to achieve, and how close are we to achieving that goal compared to, like, do we need to adapt that based on what we know now. As a couples therapist and holding space for couples, I always tell my couples that I am not for either individual more so than I am for the relationship, even if that means that the relationship needs to be dissolved. And after a certain point, working with couples, sometimes we, take time to meet with each individual by themselves to kind of get a little bit more insight without, disruption from the other partner. And then we bring that back into share it collectively. So although you'll share me this information, I always remind them that I am for both of you all. And I always tell my couples too, we can never become the individual therapist once you've interacted with a couple, because that's how bias get involved. So for my individual clients, I can never be their couples therapist. And for my couples therapy, couple clients, I can never be their individual therapist.
Yeah. So Anisha, with that, because that's a lot, like a lot to unpack. A lot of us don't want to go to counseling, right? What do you see as what's the benefits to us? Because I know that you supported. Why would you recommend someone to go to counseling? Or what would be the benefit of someone going to a therapist or getting counseling?
Yeah, so I would say the first thing is just having a safe space. So a safe space to talk through some things that maybe you can't discuss on your own. Sometimes, oftentimes couples, heterosexual couples sometimes come in because another partner has said it's an ultimatum. Like, we don't do couples therapy or couples counseling, we breaking up. And so you have to work to that. Like, that should not be the only reason why you all are engaging in this space. And sometimes it's a southern point. I think definitely within the Black community, it's a lot of stigma associated with coming into the space. So the first few sessions is often building the rapport with clients to let them know, like, you can trust that this is okay. I'm not, especially if one party is feeling as though they may get attacked, because that's a common thing in couples. Like, it's just going to be all what you said, but that's the whole purpose of, like, I'm not committed to either individual more so than the relationship itself, and having an open conversation of how did we get here? Like, oftentimes, and sometimes people do it premarital counseling, or just to get to a place where they're not in a bad space, I would say, more so than they're hoping to prevent that and working through the things because they are on a track to, long-term commitment, marriage, if that is something that they're interested in, and having a safe space to make sure that they are on the same page in regards to values and beliefs, goals, and what they want their relationship to look like.
So what would you say is the most common reason a couple comes to, one or two, like common reason couples come get therapy?
Yeah, I would say there has been a loss of trust, and that is for various reasons. So trust issues look like for the most part, that's the number one reason, or that I've seen people come into therapy for, and that is for a variety of reasons. Whether it is, they found out new information about past relationships that they did not know prior to entering this relationship, how they envisioned the relationship going, it's not going that way. Sometimes that looks like communication. So I think the second one would be breakdown in communication. Oftentimes, if somebody telling you about yourself, we don't like to hear it. And so that can create arguments. And so it's kind of like, okay, well, are you really looking at what the person is trying to say or what they're trying to tell you? And they're not trying to attack you. And so having the middle person there to say, let's hold up, based on what they said, what did you hear? Because I heard, or this is not necessarily what they said, but that's what you heard. And then you on 10,000, and that's not necessarily what your partner is trying to communicate with you, and vice versa.
Yeah. So I have two questions around that. Well, one is, can you, in your professional opinion, when someone has lost their trust, as I know that you're saying that's why they come, is it possible to regain that?
Yes. So yes, it is. I think it takes time though. Trust is gained, but it can be broken in a matter of seconds. And sometimes depending on what our own lived experiences have been prior to the breakdown, it affects how quickly or how long it's going to take for someone to regain trust. And I think that, as a mental health professional, don't put time limits on things, because who am I to say, who are we to say like how long it's going to take, depending on how deep the wound was. And so, the people always say time heals all wounds. I don't always know about that because it really does depend on, what it has surfaced, what it may be triggering based on experiences that maybe the partner or even the own person does not know about or are aware of, regards to what they experienced prior to this relationship, that now because of whatever they are going through within a relationship, it's brought up all this stuff. So that takes time to work through. And sometimes, majority of times when couples come into it and you start, digging into that information, we'll recommend individual therapy, because you need another safe space to talk about your own stuff that maybe you're not ready to share with your partner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this question is for you, Misha. Is that why happened? Why is the man always at fault?
Okay. So that's a good question. As a therapist, the man is not always at fault, but of course, as women, we like to paint that picture that they are. I see Black men individually as well in the context of relationships, and that's one of their drawbacks of coming into the space of like, she about to put it all on me, like it's all my fault. It happened to really say, hey girl, like, let's talk about you for a minute. How are you contributing to this relationship? I think that men don't always have the opportunity to express themselves, be vulnerable. And I'm thinking about, what my experience as a therapist has been. And sometimes men are like, I can't trust that she's going to host a safe space for me to tell her why certain decisions were made, even if it has caused some pain in the context of what the experience of that man has been. So it's not always the man's fault. We should, try to be aware of how we can be damaging to men in relationships based on our responses to things. And so I would say one method that we use is share and check. you share information with a person and you check to see what their response is. And based on their response, that is going to either encourage people to share more or it's going to stop them from it. So in the context of a heterosexual relationship, if a man is telling you about maybe some of their experiences or why they move the way that they do, and you like, it becomes, well, they're not going to be vulnerable with you anymore. They're not going to share things with you anymore, which then further complicates maybe, your trust in them or having the capacity where people can be safe in the context of their relationship, which then we would say is healthy. Yeah.
I like that. Safe in the context of their relationship. That is so huge. So it's like I need to be able, so if we're communicating, because this is my second question, because you said the first reason was trust, and then you said the second was communication, which Diane and I talk about all the time on this show. It's like communicate, because we felt that in a lot of our conversations on this show, a lot of the issues that we have in our relationship is because we have not communicated well with each other, or we're not communicating well with each other. So communication, how would you go about giving some advice on, like, even in dating relationships, so that you can build that relationship? How do you suggest that people really communicate with each other? Like, what are some suggestions you give to couples in that area?
So two things that come to mind is, what are your intentions? So when you are communicating, what message are you intending to deliver? And do you know the person well enough to know how they'll receive it? Because then that changes how you deliver the message. The second thing will be I messaging, and that's oftentimes what I work with couples will say, like, when I experience, say for instance, I learned some new information that maybe I didn't know before. I feel blah, blah, blah. Sad, disappointed, as versus you did, you said. And so it takes away the attack on a person and more so talks about what it is, how it is that a person is feeling based on what their experience has been. So oftentimes, go back to that. It helps a lot to break down, like, okay, well, when you hear from that perspective, it changes things. Like, oftentimes couples' responses is, I didn't know you felt that way. Because we're often...
That brings me to one more question, baby. This always listen to the stuff that else too. So I read this in a book, and so I try to practice that, and we all feel sometimes. But if I'm someone who's using those I statements, I this, I that, but I'm communicating with someone who still feels as if they're being attacked, even though I'm using these I statements, what can the person on the other end, what could they do to make sure that communication is? So I'm using my I statements. What would the other person be doing to ensure that the communication is happening?
Yeah, so I was going to say that's a good question first. But oftentimes I tell my clients, whether it's individuals or couples, oftentimes we can hear, unless we have hearing impairments, but are you listening? And so that's the thing. Like, what is the underneath message of what a person's communicating with you? So you're talking about using I messages and the other person is still feeling attacked. Well, sometimes a lot of people do not do well with discomfort. And so because you are trying to communicate something that maybe went wrong with them, people don't like conflict. As a conflict resolution person, conflict is healthy. I think that's another stigma, that we don't talk about often, that you are going to have some disagreements, even in the healthiest of relationships. And it's how you get through that essentially defines whether the relationship is healthy or not, because you're able to resolve it. So to think that, you got the honeymoon phase of relationship, all is going well, and then something happens like, oh, this relationship is not for me. Well, that could be true, but it also could be untrue, because you all haven't taken the time to attempt to have a conversation about how, A, the conflict arose, and then two, how you process and how to get through it. Because if we can't get through conflict, then whether it's a romantic relationship or a platonic one, it probably won't have too much longevity, because that's unrealistic to think that we're never going to have conflict, even in our most healthiest relationships.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
you're not going to agree with everything.
Yeah. So I don't know if anybody else had a question. I saw one question coming through to Anisha. We are out of time for our chit chat, but I thought it was really good and just some information for us all when we're thinking about communicating and trying to rebuild trust with our partners. So we talked a lot about relationships, and I just thought this would be a good opportunity for us to do that with Anisha on our show. So if you are hesitant about counseling, you might consider that. And my last question for Anisha, do you think couples should, even when things are going well, do you think that they should still, and go to counseling, or should, once we get things solved, or however you want to put it, should we just, be okay? Do you think it's a good idea to continue counseling?
Yes, I think that we often think about going to counseling when things are going astray so bad. But it can be used as preventative versus reactive. That's one of my favorite lines of like, what does this look like to be proactive instead of reactive? And so when you ask that question, that's what comes up in regards to engaging in that space because you want to prevent miscommunication. You want to have a greater level of understanding about your partner. And so that is a good place to start, even though it doesn't have to always be the place to start. But I would recommend it. Yes.
Yeah, I said that if I ever get married again, and it's not a guarantee that it'll be foolproof, but I do want to go to premarital counseling. I would
I
want to
think
do that.
I think everybody should go to premarital counseling because there's some things that you don't discuss, or even some things you don't even think about discussing. And it might not always be finances, it might be other things, and we just don't think about it. But when you go to that middle, when you go to counseling, they kind of bring out a lot of, I don't want to call them issues, but a lot of topics that either we don't want to talk about or we haven't thought about talking about it. And yeah, I think premarital counseling is good. I did that. I think it's good.
I mean, it's no guarantee, but I just think, like you said, there may be some conversations that we didn't think to talk, but it could just help. I feel like it would help to get us off on the right foot. And then this last comment before we transition, because this conversation, I think, really transitioned well to our song tonight, which is Goodbye by Jagged Edge. But the last comment was, I think we should also warn about the dangers of counseling or therapy. I'm not sure what those are, but Anisha, do you have anything to say to that before we
Yeah, so I think that that's a good perspective, and then, thanks for sharing that feedback. I would say that you have to trust the therapist that you're working with. As a therapist, we do not guarantee what outcomes will be because it is a mutual relationship. And so clients are sharing information. It has to be a safe space. I always tell my clients, sometimes it's not a good fit. Like if you have an intake session with a therapist and you feel as though they're not a good fit for you, do not continue to see that therapist. There are a variety of therapists, and then also too, sometimes, we don't find therapists that look like us, and that can be harmful because of perspective. At the end of the day, you're still working with another human. We are not perfect. And so building that relationship to ask questions that you, and to express your concerns that you have about entering into that space, I think it's only right. And a good therapist doesn't shy away from answering those questions of like why it is, how it is that you continue to keep that relationship safe. And I would say a warning, if someone is unwilling to answer those questions for you, then maybe you wouldn't want to work with them.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much for answering that.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think
so we do have some. Diane, let's transition.
No, go ahead. It's okay. Go ahead.
Okay. So we do have a song tonight, John. Conversation, but I think it will lead. We can still, Diane. I think they'll just piggyback on the song too. So just hold it up for a second. We talk about Jagged Edge, who is our fan choice, our viewers' choice this week for male groups who we talked about all month. And Jagged Edge was somebody that you all wanted us to talk about our song. So we chose the song Goodbye by Jagged Edge, but let's talk about them for a little bit. I have to give you a little tidbit. You know that the two identical twins, Brian and Brandon Casey, were the lead singers. Then they had Richard Wingo. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. I think I misspelled it. But and then Kyle Norman in the group. Their debut album wasn't that successful, but after that, their subsequent albums were a commercial success. They are from Atlanta, and they initially signed with Jermaine Dupri. They were introduced to him by what's her name? Candy Perez. And it's so funny because I listened to their song and watched their video, and they remind me of like a male version of Escape, and we did Escape last month. So nominated for so many awards, BET Awards, Grammy. They were nominated for 1 Grammy and Soul Train Music Award. I think they are really underrated, though. I think those are one of those groups that's just really underrated. They haven't been inducted to any Hall of Fame or anything, but we love them. Goodbye is from their third studio album. And the interesting thing about this song is it's the first single of the group that did not reach the top 40 on Billboard Hot 100. Which is crazy because this song is dope. This is a really good song. I love it. But anyway, with all of that being said, we're gonna ask Diane. Diane's gonna give y'all just a little bit. Y'all know how she been doing the past few weeks. So get ready to listen. And we do want to say we don't own the rights to this music. So
We don't own the right to this music. Here we go. Hold on. Here we go. Bye bye, baby.
It hurts so bad.
Yeah.
It was the best time. Anisha, I don't know if you know, but I'm really known for singing on this show. So if you hear me just pop off with some of the lyrics, or I start singing, just go with the flow. What I love about my co-host Diane is that when I get to singing, she just get in there with me like I'm getting it. So she root me on, making me feel like I'm doing something. She just go ahead and go with the flow. She'll never say like, Devon, you stop, cut it out. And she just be like, hey, you got it, girl. Get it. So yeah, if I just start singing some lyrics, it's bad. Let's see. Let me. Jagged Edge don't want the rights to either. Well, I don't know if they do or they don't, but we're getting ready to talk about this song. So at the very beginning of the song, he's talking. He says, sometimes what may be the best thing for you to do is the hardest thing to do. Because I know that I love you, but I also know that don't make everything all right. Like he's talking about it before they start singing. And I thought, it's all in the lyrics, but I just wanted to start there because I think that is very mature. Sometimes we hang on to things because we really want it. And what he said in here is so, because I've said this so many times to someone, like, I love you, that's not the thing that's going to keep you together. You can love somebody and still not be compatible, and that still not be the person for you. So the fact that he said, I love you, but I know that also doesn't make everything all right. So, and that can be difficult when you actually love a person, but then you come to realize, but this isn't it. So I'm going to stop for a minute because I have a lot to say about this song and how it relates to our chit chat. But I'm going to start with our guest and see what stood out to her in the song and what she wants to share her thoughts about the song.
Yeah, so I think I agree with what you were saying. What they say, love don't pay the bills. But in the overall concept, I think that sometimes, humans are selfish. We all are selfish for various reasons in the concept of how we benefit from any type of relationship. And so it becomes, is it a mutual exchange? What does reciprocity look like? What does authenticity look like? And so it is a hard thing to do, to walk away from someone that you love, someone that you care for deeply, because you don't want to cause them any hurt or pain, but also realizing that to stay in a relationship is more detrimental. So I always say, is it helpful or harmful? That's it. I don't like to use the words good and bad because people are not good and bad. We all have things that we come with in regards to what our lived experiences have been prior to entering into a relationship. And so what you end up finding is that sometimes people are not aligned for various reasons. And then who you once were is no longer who you are present day. And, we don't always evolve in alignment because, we are ever evolving people. And sometimes that causes us to be unaligned with people that may have been a perfect match in the past life, but presently in moving towards the future, it's time to say goodbye.
Mhm.
Absolutely. When I was when I listened to the song, then I never heard this song. This is the first time I ever heard this song. And I watched it on YouTube, and I watched the video on YouTube because I was trying to because he said it was his fault. Like, what did he do? Like, why you leaving? Like, why you saying bye? What happened? What did you do? So to me, he left a wide range open where we could say he did something to hurt her. He said he don't like to see her cry. That doesn't mean that he stepped out. It might just mean, like he was saying, we just not aligned anymore. And now it's just time for us to go our separate ways. But at the end of the video, they said they dedicated this song to the victims of 9/11. And I kind of felt that bye too. I felt the death, the bye of, not wanting to say goodbye. So yeah, it's a really nice song. But yeah, just to me, just left a wide range open. Like, why is he leaving? What happened? And then he say he gonna pack her things. So yeah.
Yeah. So this song took it. He did say he packed her things, and he also said, when I packed those things, it seemed like I'm not cracking up inside, but you're wrong. I just have to hide it because I know that's what's best for you. So this relationship has progressed from just dating because apparently they live together, right? So it's interesting that he is packing her stuff up. Those maybe she moved in with him. Let's be careful about all that moving in stuff. But anyway, I digress. I think we talked about that last week about moving in with people. Did we not, Diane? Was that last? No, just about moving in and okay. Well, maybe I'm thinking about another conversation with somebody else. But let's see. Hold on one second. Let me show this comment before I continue. That's what the song about, a loved one that passed away. About someone passing away. You think the song is about someone passing away? I got them thinking about the lyrics, but no,
Yeah.
because what he said when he's singing this song, he said, "Baby, when it's over, I'll never love another. I'm always thinking of her. I'm doing this because of her. I don't want to say goodbye."
He
He
said I
said,
don't.
I'm wondering, why do we have to say all those things that we said last night? So it's not somebody that passed away because it sounds like they had an argument and that some words were said. And to him, it's like, and the way I take this song is like, this is the first time we've been arguing. It just seems like this is a thing that's happening. And now we're at the point that we keep clashing, we keep having disagreements. And this just isn't working because now I'm making you cry and it's hurting me to hurt you. That's the way I've seen it. Because he said, why do we have to say all those things that we said last night? So I don't think it's about a person. I don't think it's about a person passing away. Even watching the video was kind of strange to me. I know, Diane, you said you watched it. The video was strange to me. I feel like it didn't even go with the song because it was about somebody saying goodbye, but not in the same context as this song.
Yeah, he was saying
Because
goodbye.
it said,
Going into service.
huh?
He was going into service.
Right. That he was going to the service.
Yeah, he was going into service.
Yeah, right.
Or he was going into service, and
He was,
I don't know.
right.
First, they was driving, and he was going into service.
Let me see. So here's a comment. Maybe she died that morning. Okay. I'm trying to think of the lyrics of the song.
That's the way in a relationship. That's a good one.
I'm just being mad. Oh, well, okay. See,
No,
I
but that
just
it
think
is
the
that.
video didn't match the song to me. And I always, yeah, the video threw me way off. Like, and it said, it's a breakup song. Right. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking it's just really a breakup song. Like,
But when you
hey,
break up, it's when a relationship breaks up, it's still a death. It's a form of not a form, but it's like a death. It's a hurt. It's a deep hurt when you love somebody and then now it's over. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna
listen, I
say,
listen to that song so many times
yeah,
after a breakup.
but it brings
Right,
up grief.
like, and it because like you said, Diane, breaking up with somebody, Misha, you could chime in on this. And I'm sure you've seen this in some research. People break up, it is like a death. Because you're angry, you're mad, then you all these emotions that you go through after a breakup. Amisha,
Yeah.
did you want
So what I was gonna say is grief. So even if there's a breakup or a person passed away, I think that oftentimes we only think about grief as a physical loss, i.e., death, but it's so much more than that. Like a loss of expectations, a loss of a relationship that this person will no longer be in your life in the way that they may have been before, and then that signals a whole lot of responses. There are stages of grief. It's 5 to be exact, but going into like the anger, being in denial that it's actually going to happen. What if you could have, should have, all the different things been said until you get to a place of acceptance. And you may be experiencing all those stages simultaneously. It doesn't have to happen consecutively. And so with that, it's an array of emotions that people experience because what you thought was going to happen did not happen. What you hoped things would be like, maybe that's not the reality of your experience. Because sometimes we do get caught up in the fantasy or the potential of what a relationship could be compared to the reality of what it was. And so in that context, you do have to work through all the emotions associated with that. And sometimes that is very painful, especially when you think about, in this context, they did say some things that they wish that they didn't. So then that brings up going back to the communication of like, I didn't intend to harm you, even though that I did. And if we could have, maybe we should have changed how it is that we related to one another.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and I know you talked about this earlier about people who they come to you, but then they realize that they are not compatible, right? So, and sometimes he did have, without the assistance. I'm getting some kind of feedback. I'm sorry. Did you all hear that? Here's some type of feedback. Oh, okay. Lost my train of thought. But he sometimes it's just not working out, right? And so, do you think that's a level of emotional maturity when people are able to come to that agreement? I mean, come to that decision in that way where it's not like on their own, Is that
Yeah.
a symbol of some emotional maturity, or because sometimes people just hang on and then they're just fighting each other all the time and they continue to try to hang on and they're just really just tearing each other down.
I'm not the expert. Okay, go ahead. I have my own. I
I
just
mean,
think
no, I mean, I'm just asking. Let's
I
talk
feel
about it.
I feel it's an individual thing because everyone deals with things differently. Some people could say, you know what, it ain't working, I'm out. And some people say, no, let's try this, let's try it again and again and again, and they don't want to let go. But I feel like some people are mature enough to say, I just think it's an individual thing. I think I'm not the expert, but I'm just saying I think it's an individual thing.
Yeah, I agree with that because I think it's subjective in regards to what is best, and so I think that having the conversation about it is the most important because sometimes people are not ready for various reasons, but also too, if you can't show up fully in a relationship, then sometimes people do need to walk away, and then sometimes people get back together. So that's another thing too. Like the breakup now is not necessarily always forever because they do need to take time to work on themselves because they cannot show up fully into a relationship because of whatever is going on at that moment in time. And so if you stay within it, you cause more harm going back to, is this harmful or is this helpful to continue something that I know I cannot fully be present or give it what you want, and you can't give me what I want, vice versa, because of X, Y, and Z. And so sometimes people are in alignment with making that decision. Sometimes they are not. And then, you need time to work through how it is that you feel, because sometimes depending on how it is that people have gotten there, one party may not share the same emotions as the other person, which make it an individual experience.
So what happens when it's harmful and helpful? So it's like,
Well, then,
it's not
yeah,
always, it's not all bad. There are these good. What happens when it's harmful and helpful?
that's a good question. I always like to talk about a cost-benefit analysis. Is what we call it, where you are associating to continue a relationship. What does it cost? What is it, the benefit, and what outweighs the other? And sometimes the cost is not as, even though it is more, it may not necessarily outweigh the benefits, and vice versa. And so in that context, sometimes we have to write these things out or talk through it to make an informed decision. I am a big advocate of gather all of your information before you make a decision, so that your decision is informed. And so at that point, you've thought about it, you're not making irrational decisions, because sometimes as humans, we can be impulsive and irrational depending on how we feel. And so if you, and I always say, emotions are informative, but they're not always facts. And so what are your emotions informing you of? But at the same time, what are the facts? And, I've seen people through heartbreak and having to say, this is not what I wanted. Sometimes as an individual therapist, an individual may say they want their partner to attend a session. I know somebody brought up the warning or dangers of relationships. So I always say, like, we have to set the intention of why your partner is coming into this space, because I'm biased, because I've only worked with you. But if you're trying to communicate something with them or get a perspective, but let me, remind you that I can't work with them, and happen to tell the partner, like, this is not to harm you, more so than, for you all to get on the same page. And that sometimes has led to the, the relationship ending, and having to work with the individual to say, this is not what you wanted. But then, as time goes on, they're able to offer insight that they cannot see because they were in it. And so that's why I say, like, sometimes you walk away, and that is not necessarily forever, but it's for the time being, so you can process what has happened in the context of relationship, to understand if you have the capacity, if the other person have the capacity to get back together, and or say, thank you, but it is what it is, and it was what it was.
It is what it is.
So, So I was thinking about those lyrics where he said, why do we have to say all those things that we said last night? And communication, and, feeling like when we're angry or in conflict, we can say whatever we want. So, and you all can chime in. I guess this was kind of Tanisha, but how do we communicate? What's the best way to handle? How do you handle it, Diane, too? Maybe when you're in conflict or you're in an argument, in an argument, and you clash, you already know you're upset. Words can't be taken back once they're.
That I'm very, 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 because I don't like, because to me, words cut. So I don't want nobody to cut me. I'm not going to cut you. So I'm not going to say anything where I have to take it back. I'm not going to say some harmful things where you're like, but you said I was or whatever. I try to really be careful with my words. When I say because I don't like the feeling. I don't like when it's done to me. So I really try to be very, very careful with that when I'm saying this one. Yeah, we get in an argument, but I feel like we also got to remember this is someone that you said you love, and our words. So is love supposed to hurt? Even in we can have a disagreement. We can, but we don't have to go deep and start cutting like it's an enemy outside. So we got to remember this is someone that you love, and sometimes you got to walk away or write it down. I'm good for that. I'm good for writing it down and saying everything I have to say, or putting it in my phone just to get it out. But I'm not going to say it to the person, because if I love them, if I love you, I don't want to hurt you. I don't. And yeah, you're gonna have disagreements, but they don't have to cut. Ooh, them words.
So will you come back later? Will you come back later and have the discussion, or do you just write it? So, because what I'm hearing you say is that when you're in conflict or angry, you just kind of back up because you don't
No,
want to say it.
no. I'll argue. You know, if there's an argument,
good.
there's an argument. If there's an argument, there's
Okay.
an argument. But if there's some things that I might want to say later on, I'm so angry later on, I might really think about it and I might put it in. Or before I have the conversation, I'm going to put all of those things in. You know, I'm going to write them down so I can get them out. But I'm not going to say them to you. I'm not going to, for example, say you MF, you a MF, you ain't no good. You not, you know, bringing up all the things that person shared with you, like you were saying, with having the open space, and I'm taking all of that and putting them in my gun and shooting them back at you. I don't do that. I think that and that's just me. You know, everybody is different. I don't do that.
So this was a comment, and I thought it was a good comment because I think it's worth talking about. When people say harmful things, they are setting out to hurt you. Do you all think that's true?
Sometimes, and sometimes it's not. Because sometimes somebody,
not.
And because in the active argument, depending, I think you talked about it earlier, emotional maturity. If someone is not, at a place where they can say, you know what, you saying a lot of stuff, but I'm gonna have to walk away from this right now because you are heated, and I don't want to match your energy because sometimes that's the thing. I always tell people, and even personally, in conflict, I'll walk away from the situation before I give you a response until I've had a chance to say, you know what, this is not what it is. And working with couples to say, can one party agree to walk away, or can you all both agree and say, this is going to go to a place that we know we may not be able to come back from. So let's put this on ice until we are at a cooler place to then have a conversation. And sometimes that looks like the same day. Sometimes it's like multiple days, or wait until therapy to talk about it. Even though we don't always recommend that you wait until a session to, work through some things. But at the same time, then that gives you insight to say, okay, this is a bigger issue that maybe we weren't aware of, but there's a theme around the conflict that we continue to find ourselves in that we need to explore.
Like you said, I think I agree. I think sometimes yes and sometimes no, but you just said something important. A lot of times it's just about matching the other person's energy, right? It's like, oh, you came to me, I'm coming at you. Nobody is really gonna back down. So it's like, so I do think sometimes some people set out, but I think sometimes people are not really trying to hurt one another, but maybe trying to win the disagreement or the argument, and so, but I don't want people calling me out of my name. So I that's just like something I try very hard not to do when I'm talking to people, because I don't want you talking to me like that. And just imagine if it's a man, like I really feel some kind of way if a man is talking to me in a certain way, using words toward me that, I may not be able to get past some of that. So I want to communicate with you the way you communicate with me. A couple of comments before we move on. So Mo said, let cooler heads prevail. Both parties should be in a clear state when communicating. It can be hard, but when egos become involved, nothing good comes from that. I agree with that. It's like, hey, this is not even productive. Let's just table this for right now. You take 10 steps back when you communicate from a space of non-clarity. Yeah. And who's listening?
When you argue, nobody's listening a lot of times. And a lot of times people don't, that cool down, take 10 steps back. Sometimes if you don't know how to do that, if you don't know how to, you know what I'm saying? Some people don't know how to do that. People keep going and then the words start coming out and them words cut. I'm telling you, I can't take it. You can't.
I think it's just is to do people try to hurt. They're intentionally trying to hurt people when they say certain things. Most said, I agree with Anisha. Sometimes words are meant to hurt, but not always. Listen, I've said some things I absolutely didn't mean, and I've said things I absolutely did mean. End of the day, you can't take your words back. I mean, for real, I think all of us have. That's why I said sometimes yes, sometimes yeah, I want to hurt you, especially if you hurt me. But sometimes I just want to be on attack. But then other times it's just I'm just gonna say whatever. I don't think it's always about hurting the other person necessarily. A question was, Nisha, is it good to throw the past things in a person's face? Hold on one second to that question. Let me see these other two comments, then we can answer. If you can't do that, you probably don't need to be dating. Not sure, but that comment was for we need to be adults and stop allowing our emotions to take over the situation. 100%. I agree with that. We do have to, but let's just be honest. A lot of people communicate with each other like that, and that's how they get down. That's not gonna work for me. But okay, let's see. Anisha, the question was, is it good to throw the past things in a person's face? Now, before you answer that, we do have a question for our last segment, but I kind of like, we'll see where it goes with this conversation. We may not get to it tonight. So go ahead, Anisha.
So you said a key word is throw it in somebody's face. And so I think that is no. However, there are some things that will need to be addressed so that you can reach a resolution. And so in the heat of an argument, you know, the things that you withheld and maybe have never shared with the other person that you are unhappy with has caused you harm. An argument is not a safe space to bring it up naturally. It sometimes comes up. And so then you have to get to a place where once parties have cooled down to then say, you know, you said this one thing, what's the truth behind that? Because when we are saying these harmful things, sometimes it is you hurt me, so I'm gonna hurt you. It is like, you know, something that you did in the past, I actually was affected by it and I'm not over it. You know, sometimes and I like to say is in relationships, there's a such thing as rupture and repair. When we, you know, because we are imperfect people, we can rupture some of our relationships, and both parties have to be willing and able to say, I'm committed to, you know, engaging in repair. And sometimes we can't, like people are not obligated. They don't owe us the right to say we need to repair this because maybe the damage was too deep. You know, it hurt us too bad that you do not have the capacity to repair. But sometimes people can, oftentimes we can repair if both parties are willing and able to do so. And so, you know, that's how you learn people in the context of conflict of like, okay, I always say, I like when conflict happens because it's an opportunity to learn, to grow, to expand what the dynamic of relationship is.
Mm-hmm. I like that. Thank you, Anisha. Let's see. And the other thing is sometimes the truth hurts and no one wants to hear that. Are you responding? Nicole, was that to that response to that question? And then said, well said, okay. So I feel like Anisha, we kind of saying that, you know, those things need to be resolved. Maybe they weren't fully resolved. We didn't fully talk about that issue. Is that kind of what you were saying with your response?
Yes, and I think that, you know, we're not always honest with the gravity or the depth of our emotions with people. And so because it takes a level of vulnerability, and depending on where you are in your relationship, you may not be willing to be that vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, we talk about also some of the benefits of being in therapy. It's a very intimate space because you end up learning a lot about an individual. Sometimes you know more about a person than their family and friends do. And so, you know, I still go back to the person who said the warning about the dangers or the harm that can be done in therapy, because their therapist has a lot of information that maybe no one else knows. And so you have to be working with, of course, someone who is skilled, but also a safe person to then unpack what those things are, but then also to teach you how it is that you engage in sharing that information with someone else. So I always like to think that therapy is a place to practice some of the things that, you know, you may not necessarily be ready to do with a person that has, essentially, they have more stake into it. As a therapist, if people lash out on me, it's not personal. It's not personal. And sometimes it's a reflection. So we have a lot of transference that can happen where someone is projecting things onto you, but because I'm trained to then respond in a certain way to say, okay, let's talk about what just happened, because what is it that I've said that triggered that has become a buzzword, but we have to be careful because there is a real thing as triggers. Like when you are not knowing a person, you don't know what their experience have been, so you may say something that's triggered their whole lived experience of a word, a situation, and because of that, that's what they're reacting to versus a response. So I can talk about this all day, but there's a difference between a reaction versus a response. And oftentimes people are reacting to a variety of things. And that's why we get into these arguments compared to who were responding. Oftentimes it wouldn't escalate to that degree.
So when you're in a heated situation and both parties are heated, because I know you said conflict is good, is it best for us to, hey, let's step back for a minute, or should we continue in that, but have some parameters around what we're saying to each other?
It depends. It depends on if you have the capacity to work through it, because sometimes things escalate, but if it is getting to a place where it becomes unsafe, then that's when it's time to stop. And sometimes people even are arguing in therapy sessions, and you say like, wait a minute, let's pump the brakes on that, because this is escalating to a place that you all may not be able to recover from. And so, sometimes when we in an argument, we know it's about to go to a place we may not be able to come back from. And the hope is that someone can walk away, even though that's not always what ends up happening.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know if this is a question or just a comment. What is that, a question? Conflict in the bed. What does that mean? Are we talking about intimacy? What we're talking about? Is that a question? Okay. So, Diane, did you have something to add? Because our time is winding down, and instead of asking a question, I think that we should kind of just wrap this segment up.
Yeah, sure. Real Still said he okay. No, that's good. We're good. We're good. Okay. I think it was good stuff. Good stuff.
So then our last thing, final question, because we're wrapping up, and the thing that we really were talking about was communication, and talk about those things that we said last night. Then the lyrics that said, why do we have to say those things that we said last night? But really just talking about communicating and being better communicators within our relationship, and then fighting, know what I'm saying, verbal, not physical. Don't putting your hands on nobody. Do you hear me? Nobody. And don't even say Vanya from Ladies and Lyrics was like, no, I didn't say it. I'm saying fighting with your words, fighting fair, right? So just being somebody commented that, we're not even getting anywhere when we're both angry. So when we think about saying goodbye to people, sometimes in relationships, I want to end the show on this. Sometimes relationship, it may be best to say goodbye, but we all have to, Anisha said, we have to talk about what's helpful and what's harmful, and then make a decision there. So anyway, I love this song. And I thought it was amazing. And I love that we got a chance to talk about it, especially with you, Anisha, because I thought it was very fitting. But Anisha, look, you have to come back because you have a wealth of knowledge. So we try to get everybody to say, yeah, we're going to come back on your show because we've had amazing guests. So when it fits in your schedule, make sure you come back. But next month, I think it's the next time we come back. Is it a new month? Is it a new month? It is. It's going to be May. So we're going to have a new theme. If you have a suggestion for a theme, you can let us know. But we kind of have something in the works. But next month, a new theme, new shows. We want you all to come back next Wednesday. Look, Anisha, you got like, yes, she has to come back. Somebody enjoyed you, Anisha. Probably not more than I did, though. I'm going to take all the nuggets and tuck them away. But come back next week, next Wednesday. Oh, and if you haven't done it already, share us with your people. Share this show and invite somebody on. Maybe next week, Diane, we got to talk about them bringing a friend again like we did last season. But we'll see you next week live in May with a new theme, new songs with Diane and I on Ladies and Lyrics. Have a nice night, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Good night.
Thank you, Anisha.